the West Ham Massive are pleased to support Iron Supporting Food Banks. They are a group of West Ham fans and friends inspired by the work of other football food banks around the country. They collect food and cash donations for a Newham food bank in Beckton, who supplies 7 distribution centres in the borough 7 days a week and hand out several hundred 3-day emergency food packs every month to families in need. They are also working with other groups to improve conditions for vulnerable adults and children in the Newham community. You can help by making a donation to their Just Giving page. You will find the link to this in the description section of the video details in this stream. Thanks for your support. Come on, you Irons. We are here for the ongoing series of Mount Rushmore. For those of you that are not too sure of this particular concept, allow me to fill in the blanks. So we get a guest in the hot seat and they will choose players that they have seen playing for West Ham during their time supporting the club. They may choose to go route one. They might go with the very best of the best. They might choose a slightly unorthodox route, however. They could choose cult heroes, for example, as opposed to actual legends of the club. They might choose academy graduates, might choose bad boys, could even choose someone just on the basis that they liked him as a person, or indeed any combination of these genres or something completely different. It's their mountain and they're going to adorn it as they see fit. You can see who I've got in the hot seat. We have got in Gonzo from Hammers Chat. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, thanks, Gatesy. Thank you for having me on. I've got to say, I do like mountain.
Yes, you may say that. I could not possibly comment because my wife is sat right over there and I've got to be very careful. So you can say what you want. You're in your man cave. You're all on your own. But I've got to be
I am. Although, to be perfectly honest with you, Gatesy, there's some skullduggerous stuff going on this man cave. There's people loitering around with bad intentions. I have to say. So anyway, I'll say no more about that, mate. But I'll put it this way: I have to make sure I lock this man cave up when I leave.
Sounds rather sinister. I hope you've got good security cameras and lighting and all the rest of it.
I do.
Good to hear it. So, Gonzo, we've got you a hammer and a chisel. I will foot the ladder whilst you, at a distance, are up there chiseling away and getting the faces of your 4 selections into this particular edifice. So, talk to me. Face number 1 on your mountain. Who are you putting up there and the reasons behind it, please?
I'm a bit worried you're looking at my skirt, quite frankly, when I'm up this ladder.
I thought it was a kilt.
That's true. Oh, you know what they say about Scotsmen and their kilts. They don't wear any under Hartson, if you know what I mean.
We'll have to ask Gio about that one.
We will. Well, I can confirm, mate. Whenever he gets drunk, the kilt comes up, and it's embarrassing, quite frankly. But anyway, number 1. Let me just say this now as a little disclaimer. So easy for me to, say Billy Bonds and Alan Devonshire and Trevor Brooking and all the rest of it. And I think this video will be over very quickly, which is never good for a video. Why say something with 1 word when you can use 1,000 is my ethos, Gatesy. So, and I think, do you know what? So I'm mixing it up. You said bad boys, cult heroes, all the stuff. I like all that. So there's no particular rhyme or reason. And I'm chucking a controversial one in as well, just to stir the
like
pot.
It.
Give you something for clickbait.
Always good. So, where are we going?
Well, we're going Leroy Rosenior. That's where we're going. And Leroy was, I would say, maybe not a West Ham cult hero, but certainly one of mine, and somebody I used to really enjoy going to see. I used to like traveling to the game in the hope that he would be playing. And I think it's the first time that I can remember, realistically, a super athletic player. And I think I was just in awe of, well, his athleticism, really. And I've never, ever, well, I have since, but at that point, I'd never seen any footballer jump as high as him. He could compete with the biggest centre-backs. He wasn't as big as the centre-backs he was playing up against, but there was something electric about him. There was something that, well, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up whenever he got the ball. I thought something was going to happen. The way we would feed him, the way, just the way I felt there was a constant threat. Now I'm young. I'm aware that I'm young at that time, and particularly when you're at Upton Park and you're in the North Bank and you're behind the goal. For half the game at least, you're seeing him at quite close quarters. And anybody that used to go in the days before seating, if you were a lad or a girl, of course, you will remember this. People used to put you towards the front.
Yeah.
The grown-ups used to say, go on, just go. They'd never get away with it now. And so on and so forth. And there used to be little things like milk crates and different things to stand on. There was a load of crap down there, which again, you wouldn't get away with. And you used to stand on stuff and you were there. In fact, it was the first time I ever heard a child swear. Was at funny enough, it was in the North Bank, and it was West Ham against Everton, and he was swearing at Neville Southall. And I can't tell you the words. I mean, I don't, as you know, I mostly don't swear on videos anyway. And the very worst of the swear words, Rob. Honestly, the very worst of them. And his nationality. Pardon?
What, bum?
Yeah, absolutely. His nationality was brought into it, and he was, the young lads was certainly telling him which day of the week he'd be seeing him next week, right? So, and I couldn't believe it. Anyway, the kid stood next to his dad. Oh, and I looked at mine. You're checking it, and he didn't bat an eyelid. The old man. Oh my God, you can't say that to another human being. You certainly can't say it to Neville Southall, I'm quite sure. And I was absolutely gobsmacked at this volley of abuse that, I don't know, he must have been 10 or something. I can't even remember how old I was at the time. He was a similar age to me. Shouting all this crap at poor old Neville Southall. But anyway,
I did apologise to him, though, in fairness. I did apologise to Neville.
Did you see him on Tuesday, incidentally?
It was Thursday, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's very good. And so there was something about that. That's the memory I take away with it. I know you asked what specific memory. I don't particularly have one. It was just this collective display of athletic prowess. And I'm aware now there were better players, and I could pick better strikers than Leroy Rosenior. In fact, I will later on in my Mount Rushmore. But in terms of someone I turned up at a football match to go and see, he was up there, and a lovely guy as well.
Yeah, he was. I always remember sort of like with Leroy, when you sort of said about Leroy Rosenior was one of your picks. There's two things that I thought of immediately. Was the goal that he got in the FA Cup replay at Highbury. We beat a team that would go on to win the league title 1-0 in their backyard, and we went on to get relegated in the same season. Typical West Ham. That's just the way it is. But he was so unlucky with injury. He'd always seem to sort of get an injury just at the wrong time, just as he's building a little bit of momentum. He gets another injury and he was out. I mean, I'm just looking here at his record. He was with us for 4 years and he played 53 league games, which isn't an awful lot.
Yeah, it is a shame, really. And what was the guys? Was it Mike Small? Remember Mike Small?
Yeah, no neck.
Remember that season he had? Do you remember?
Yeah.
I think it was the start of the season, but it looked like he was going to be the best striker in the league. We have these players who fleetingly look brilliant. Danny Williamson.
Yeah.
Stuart Slater was another one who looked like he was going to go and be the best player in the world, basically, at one point. And we have these players, and they sort of disappear without really doing much else. I don't know what happened to him, actually. I know what happened to Danny Williamson. What happened to Small?
Small, I think I think he ended up playing somewhere in Greece from memory.
But he looked brilliant. I mean, there was a point where he looked, oh, this boy, this guy's unplayable.
Or did we get him from Greece? I can't remember. Hang on. I'll tell you what. I am going to check.
Maybe at the time you were just singing some of the songs from the musical of Greece.
No, we got him from Brighton and Hove Albion, but he was playing in Greece before that with PAOK Salonika.
Ah.
So there you go. He ended up, we got rid of him to a team in Sweden.
Yeah.
That footballing hotbed.
Yeah. And there's some players are just, there's I know Stuart Robson was a good player. I know that. But there was a point at West Ham where he was brilliant. Brilliant. Anyway, there you go. So he's one of those. He's one of those ones. There would be other fans from other clubs who wouldn't even recognise the name Leroy Rosenior, and they would because of his son, who, you know, obviously went on and made a bit of a name for himself and was, I think he was Wayne Rooney's assistant, quite possibly as well. At Derby, is Rooney still at Derby?
No, he's over managing in the MLS, isn't he?
Of course he is, but yeah.
I think from memory, I think his son Liam he's actually the manager of Hull City. That's it.
Oh well, there you go. So yeah, but yes, there'll be people that's their only knowledge of a Rosenior, but no. But the one you want to know about is Rosenior Senior.
Yeah,
Senior Rosenior. Not
and as you
Rosenior.
say, he had a prodigious leap on him, and I don't know. I've sort of like, again, another little memory, sort of like, you know, mentioning his aerial prowess. He seemed to have this ability where he would sort of like he'd leap into the air, and it would be almost as if he'd defy the laws of gravity, in the sense that sort of like he'd with the sort of like the height he'd get to, and then sort of like once he got there, he just seemed to be up in the air for a split second longer than someone of his stature should have been. You know what I mean?
His wings.
Yeah, possibly. Maybe it's his jet boots. I don't know.
Well, there are two other leapers. I'd like to see a leap off, but you can't do a generational leap off. But would be Les Ferdinand and Cristiano Ronaldo. They've all got the leap and the hang.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
there you go.
You know, like when Wile E. Coyote, when he runs off the edge of a cliff, and he doesn't know, he stays there until he notices.
Oops.
And then he falls down. Yeah, but he can hang there. If Wile E. Coyote never looked down, he could run off the edge of the Grand Canyon and he'd be absolutely fine. It's the looking down that does it. And I think they're all made of the same stuff. Wile E. Coyote, not Checo Chiete, different. Wile E. Coyote, Cristiano Ronaldo, Leroy Rosenior, and of course Les Ferdinand. They've all got that quality about them.
What would have happened, I wonder, if we'd have signed the footballing equivalent of Roadrunner then? If we signed the footballing equivalent of Wile E. Coyote?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't.
Maybe that's where we went wrong.
Billy Bonds was probably the. As he didn't stop, did he? Let's be fair. He probably was Roadrunner.
True. Okay, so that's the first head that you've carved into the side of your mountain, Gonzo.
Yeah.
With your hands battered, bruised, bloodied.
Yep.
I must send you back up that ladder to do face number 2.
Pervert.
Where are we going and why?
We are going, I'll tell you where we're going, up the ladder, up the mountain, and we are chiseling out the features of Rio Ferdinand.
Rio Ferdinand now.
Rio Ferdinand.
I can imagine there's probably going to be people that watch it, both of them, that will probably turn around and say, you can't have him on your mountain, surely, after all he's done and said about the club. But this is Gonzo's mountain. It's completely up to him. Why Rio?
Well, because I like to put all that sort of stuff behind me in terms of assessing the players. Otherwise, where does that start and where does it end? Do we not acknowledge how good Payet was because of the way he left? Because if we don't, we're in total denial that was our first world-class player. Actually, maybe Tevez, but our first world-class player in maybe 20, 30 years.
Agreed.
So, we do you want to ignore? I think if you don't, then you're almost, we end up just assessing Mark Noble, don't we? And Mark Noble takes all the awards for everything because he never left. And so I think you've got to. I'm looking back on what that was like as a fan when Rio came through, and it was absolutely magic. And there's a lot of players who have had the title, have had to carry the tag of the next Bobby Moore, or it might be the next Jeff Hurst, or whoever it might be, and they are not easy tags to wear. They're heavy. They're a burden.
Yeah,
and Rio didn't care because Rio was that, and a memory, an abiding memory of him was actually quite a negative one. It was very early, and it was Alan Shearer giving him the runaround. But my word, it was an education, a real education for him. I think he was only 17 at the time. And funny enough, I remember a similar thing happening to Declan Rice. I remember a similar thing happening to James Tompkins. I think you need it. It's a sort of rite of passage as a central defender, certainly, I think. We got a little bit used to it, excuse me, with Michael Owen, with Wayne Rooney, and maybe now a teenage superstar. We're just a lot more accustomed to it now. But back then, it was Glenn Hoddle brought Rio Ferdinand into the England squad at 17. That was an amazing thing, particularly for a defender. Think of that now. A 17-year-old at centre-back. It was amazing. And he was that good. He was brilliant. And I don't think, Gatesy, that he ever truly reached his potential, which is frightening because he won everything apart from the World Cup, basically. Everything at club level you could possibly win. Rio won it, and most of it more than once. And that's amazing. That's how good he was. But I think in many respects, look, Alec Ferguson made creative teams. He really did. If you were a midfielder or you were an attacker, a winger or whatever under Alec Ferguson, you were allowed to thrive. I don't think there was a massive hallmark of him having players that marched out from the back and were allowed to do what they wanted. I mean, people will allude to Pallister. No, Pallister was a bit more of a ball player than Bruce, but he wasn't given free license. You remember them when they happened, by the way. You might remember Newcastle had a player called Philippe Albert.
Yeah.
He was allowed to do what he wanted. Frank Leboeuf was allowed to do what he wanted. Arsenal, under Arsene Wenger, there was a point, only got injured in the end, but they had a player called Vermaelen, I think his name was.
Yep.
He's a Belgian player. He could, you do what you want, mate. So you notice them when they come up, and Rio really should have been that. Remember Harry talking about the education that he was giving him. Harry loves, I'm talking about Harry Redknapp, obviously, loved Bobby Moore to bits. And I still think to this day, well, I don't think, I know, because he's told me that Harry Redknapp is scarred by what the club did to Bobby Moore and how Bobby Moore was treated. He loved Bobby. Everyone loved Bobby Moore. And you'll see that, by the way, where we've got a documentary, a Canning Town Len documentary coming out soon, which I was really fortunate to be involved in. And when we did the final day of filming, I remember you were there, Gatesy, when we did the filming with where Alvin Martin was hosting and whatnot. But that was the fight. We've been filming that for 2 years, and I'm really honoured to be involved in that project. But I've spoken to pretty much all of those players, and I don't want to reveal too much about the project itself, but about Bobby Moore and about Greenwood and about Lyle. And these are people who worked with them every day. Do you know what I mean? So everybody has something brilliant to say about Bobby Moore. Don't get me wrong. But when Rio was being spoken about in such terms, he didn't shrink from it. And also people comparing him to Franco Baresi. Wonderful player. There's another one in the ilk that I mentioned. And possibly the king of them all. Well, there were two of them. It was Beckenbauer and Bobby Moore. That was what Rio was able to do. And he was that guy that would stroll into central midfield and make an additional central midfielder, but not just do it to make up an extra number. He'd be brilliant when he was there. You remember him. And I was in awe when he came through at West Ham. Wow, look at this guy. He's moving into central midfield and actually dribbling past people. He was an outstanding outstanding talent, and he had a fine career. But at that point, when he came through at West Ham, I looked at him. I thought we might just have the best midfield. The best defender in the world on our hands here. This is what he's going to go on to be, and this is why I've chosen him, because those times are very, very few and far between. Payet would be another one. Whoa, okay. Maybe Messi, but at that time when Payet was in his pomp, I was looking at David Silva. I was looking at Ozil, who was in good form at the time. I was thinking I wouldn't swap Payet for them. But Payet, he is absolute world class. And when Rio came through at West Ham, I thought, wow, this is special, very, very special, and that's why he's in there.
Yeah, and he very much a ball playing centre back in his West Ham days. I don't think he quite had that same license in his days at Manchester United. I think he was very much more a pure defender, if you know what I mean. Solely a defender. That's it. I think that it was a bit of a shame that he didn't have the opportunity to carry on being that ball playing centre back, striding out regularly with the ball from defence into midfield, setting the attacks going. He didn't quite have that same freedom under Fergie at Manchester United, sadly.
He didn't. He didn't, and that is a shame. It was a great partnership with Vidic. Don't get me wrong; it was a great partnership, and I'm quite sure he doesn't look back with regret. A World Cup, can't remember which one. Rio was in Team of the Year. A World Cup. Let's remember that as well. So, absolutely, Rio was thought of as one of the best defenders in the world, and had the world record, the world transfer record, of course. But he could have been even better. He could have been, and it's that. Just some players stand out, and I've mentioned a few of them in that position. I'll give you another two as well, both at Chelsea, funnily enough. Well, it's actually when Glenn Hoddle became manager of Swindon. He played himself as a player manager at Sweeper. Anybody that saw that and saw him play, this is the trouble with it, Gatesy. It's you're almost not meant to speak, particularly of your rivals' players like that, and it's very restricting in what you discuss and what you should discuss and what's right to discuss. I can't be doing with it, honestly. Glenn Hoddle was. I ain't seen many better footballers than Glenn Hoddle in my time. I'll tell you that much now. Damning indictment on England, and we continue to do it, by the way, at the most talent. I think he had 50 caps, something like that.
Yeah.
Glenn Hoddle should have had 110 caps. I mean, it's preposterous, actually. But anyway, so he was that good a footballer. He played himself at centre-back. Then when it became Chelsea manager, still player manager, played himself at centre-back. When he couldn't do it anymore, and he was just manager, he brought Ruud Gullit in, and Ruud Gullit is still to this day the finest all-round footballer I have ever seen in my life. Apparently, bit before our time, John Charles was the same. John Charles apparently was like that. Could be a centre-forward, a centre-back, central midfielder. I've seen Ruud Gullit play at centre-forward. I've seen him play in central midfield. I've seen him play on the right wing. I've seen him play right back. And I've seen him play at centre-back. And he looked world-class in every bloody position. How he is not spoken about more and revered in those terms, I've no idea. But anyway, Chelsea brought him in, and it was like it's like when your kids are toddlers and you go and have a little kick around in the garden with them. That's what it's like. That's what Ruud Gullit was like, and I think Rio had that talent. I really do. So I don't think it was fulfilled to that extent.
Yeah, he started as a midfielder from memory, didn't he, in the youth team, and then he transitioned into centre back. It was, I think, Tony Carr. I remember speaking to Tony Carr about. I think it was a game that the youth team played in. I think it was the South East Counties League Cup or something like that against Chelsea away, and Rio just ran the show by all accounts. I think if I remember the story correctly, I think that Harry Redknapp's father was at the game. Yeah. And he was on the phone with him saying, seriously, this kid is just on another level. And
yeah, true story. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic player. And we built a stand when he went. That was nice. So
yeah.
named it after him unofficially, of course. But there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Rio's up there. Like it or lump it.
There you go. I'm looking up at this mountain, and I've got to say it's a very, very good likeness. It has to be said. But you are only halfway through the chore, so you must have a quick cup of tea and get yourself back up that ladder with your hammer and chisel and
You're a hard
get to it.
taskmaster.
I am. I insist that this task gets seen through to the end. So Gonzo, face number 3 on the side of your mountain, please.
Base number 3 was a man with a fantastic yet simple song, and that's Big Johnny Hartson.
Which version are we going to go with?
I do it. Big Fat John, Big Fat John, Big Fat Johnny Hartson, Big Fat John, Big Fat John, Big Fat Johnny Hartson. That'll do.
Oh, I remember Super Johnny Hartson.
Well, we used to sing Big Fat John. It was nice. It was. Yeah, I was disappointed when it was said with love, and then and that certainly there's a version about Frank Lampard, which isn't sang with love.
Oh dear! Talk to me about John Hartson, bustling Welsh centre forward. A bit of a throwback, isn't he, John Hartson, to what we've got now as number 9s.
Yet to get in a team now. He would get in a team now. Tell you, John Hartson was a top quality player. We got Arsenal to thank for that, by the way, because what they had was at the time when they let him go, when Wenger came in, Wenger already had Bergkamp there, and he already had Ian Wright there, and he just brought in Nicolas Anelka. And at this point, we didn't know how good Nicolas Anelka was. Another player that gets forgotten. It's because Thierry Henry was so good, you forget how good Anelka was. Anelka was unplayable. Fast, strong, could finish, could travel with a ball. Yeah, very good, very, very good player. Now, what had happened was Arsenal had made a double signing of Matty Upson, funny enough, and John Hartson, I think from Luton. I think that's how it went down. I might have that wrong, but that's how I remember it anyway. We were very lucky because he was absolutely brilliant, Hartson. But you look at those 3 strikers I just mentioned, he's not getting in the team ahead of those 3. And they were all magnificent players. Funny enough, everything I've just said about Anelka, I still think he was probably the 3rd best of those 3, and that's how good they were. Ian Wright, one of my favourite players. And you ever seen a clip of him when he sees his old coach and he thinks he's dead?
Oh, Sidney Pigden.
Oh, crikey. Honestly, I blubbing me fucking eyes out at that when I saw it. Oh, God. You know what I mean? The kids are saying, "You're right, Daddy. Yeah, I got a bit of hay fever."
I know exactly the clip. It was at the old Highbury, wasn't it?
Oh.
And he came out and hello, Ian.
He takes his hat off. And he just says that he can't, he's like choked up. I thought you were dead. My God, I can't watch this.
Yeah.
He
told him how proud he was of him, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. I was so proud of you, Ian. And you've turned out. And oh my God, honestly, bloody hell. I thought that was worse than Bambi dying.
Useless piece of information. Since you've brought it up, there's actually a plaque to Sidney Pigden on the side of the school that Ian Wright and Sidney Pigden was at in Brockley, in South London. There's a plaque because he was a pilot in the Second World War, if I remember rightly.
Right.
Because I remember hearing I can't remember what the podcast was. It might have been on something a BBC Sounds podcast or whatever it was. And Ian Wright, and this was after Mr. Pigden had died, had passed on, and it was something about Sid Pigden did fly past after the end of the Second World War over Buckingham Palace. Because I think he was in the RAF from memory. And apparently Sid Pigden had turned around to Ian Wright and said that he was actually more proud seeing Wrighty make his England debut than he was of doing the fly over Buck House. That's how much he meant to him.
Oh, it was amazing. Real proper moment. Proper human moment. And I met Ian Wright years ago. and he doesn't disappoint. By the way, he does not disappoint. Yeah. Lovely guy. Bergkamp, what a player Bergkamp was. Amazing. Just one of the best. Again, so many good superstars in the Premier League. Bergkamp gets overlooked. You know, like the goal he scored against Newcastle.
Yeah.
People saying, did he mean it? Did he mean it? Look, it's Dennis Bergkamp, for goodness sake. If it was Carlton Palmer, I might say, did he mean it? Dennis, of course he bloody meant it. It's bloody Dennis Bergkamp. Honestly. It's like seeing a I don't know, like a Picasso or Michelangelo next to a painting. Oh, look, that's a lovely painting. Do you reckon he meant it? It's Dennis, he meant it. All right?
He meant it, definitely.
So there you go. So anyway, John Hartson comes in. We're heading for the trapdoor. Harry Redknapp goes in to see Terry Brown, says we need to score goals. And Terry Brown says, yeah, okay, fine. I'll sanction it. I'll buy you a striker. And Harry says, actually, I might need two. So we bring in Hartson and Kitson. And I think it was brilliant. And he was brilliant. Again, on his day, it was unplayable, a massive handful for defenders. And I think the fact that we sold him for £7.5 million to Wimbledon, which was big money at the time, 7.5 million, tells you how good he was. An amazing player, a fantastic player, right player at the right time. Got on really well with Harry as well. I think they were good mates, had little sneaky bets. And, they had a bit of the old Ivan Toney going on there. And but yeah, fantastic, absolutely fantastic player. And you talk about cult heroes, proper cult heroes. I was gutted to see him go.
Same.
Do like me strikers, mate. You know.
Yeah, no, he came in. I remember because he got signed, I think, in about February, March from memory, in the season where, you should say, we were sort of hurtling towards the drop. He came in with Kitson, and I think Steve Lomas followed very shortly thereafter. And those three were instrumental in getting us up the table. And then the following season, John Hartson absolutely came out of the traps flying. He was scoring goals for fun. Absolutely just smashing goals in left, right and centre, bullying centre-backs, absolutely tearing them to shreds. A real physically imposing, intimidating striker. As I say, little bit of a throwback now, probably strikers of his default sort of pattern, if you will, probably in the modern game would be getting booked and sent off every other week for a lot of the sort of like the physicality that he dished out. But I loved him.
Yeah,
he was brilliant. Heart on your sleeve type of guy.
Really was. And had a good career. Went on and played for Celtic and won lots, obviously. And very good strike partnership, him and Chris Sutton, which never should have worked as a partnership, but they were both so good that it did work. Just a wonderful, wonderful player. And obviously, battled testicular cancer and, came back, really, really well from that as well. So, I mean, a great player and a great player for West Ham. And I think this is, if you were going to, at the start, you said they can be cult heroes or they can be this. If you were going to try and give my four a title, it's more about how they made me feel, how those players made me feel when I was going to a game. And all of those players, I used to go to a game to watch them play. And I think that's the hell of a thing in a team game. Hell of a thing, Gatesy. You're watching a sport where there's 22 people on the field of play. It's not a tennis match. And you go to that game to watch one person play. That says a lot if one person can capture your attention. And I think that's what I'm looking at there, really.
Yeah, I mean, we signed him. I thought at the time it was 5 million, but according to what I'm reading here, 3.2 million. We had him.
Yes.
Yeah, we had him. So
Kitson was 2 point something. Yeah.
Yep. And he, like I say, he scored a good volume of goals. Just looking here in his West Ham career, 73 appearances in all competitions, 33 goals. That's no mean feat. And then we sell him at a tidy profit. And to be fair, probably at the time we sold him, his output had diminished for whatever reason. And it was good business for the club. But like you, I was quite disappointed that he'd gone, because I just thought he was a really good top quality striker. So we are now 3/4 of the way through this mountain, Gonzo. Your last choice.
I always finish a mountain, mate, so don't worry about
that. Well, once you start the job, you got to see it through, mate, to the bitter end. So back up that ladder you go with your hammer and your chisel, and this will be the last time I send you up there, young man. So what's your fourth and final choice, and why?
Fourth and final choice is Joe Cole, for many of the reasons I've already described. I mean, honestly, you can take a lot of what I said about Rio and apply it to Joe Cole. The whole lot, the excitement of coming through, the unfulfilled potential. Again, these players would argue with me, and rightly so. Hold on, what do you mean unfulfilled potential?
Look at my trophy cabinet.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But Jose Mourinho would argue he made Joe Cole a better player. I would argue different. And because I do think it's entertainment. And the Joe Cole that did the double header in the FA Youth Cup against Coventry was not the Joe Cole that played at Chelsea.
No.
Put it this way. That being said, there was a goal where Chelsea won the league title. I think it was against Manchester United. And you saw the old Joe Cole, then he was surrounded by players. It's funny what your memory does to you. I've got him surrounded by about 50 players. It can't be that way. There's not that many people on the pitch, but he's surrounded. It's like General Custer's last. I tell you what it is. It's like the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae with oh my god, with Xerxes' Persian invading armies, and that's what it was like. And there he was with his shield, refusing to kneel, and his spear, surrounded by the invading forces. Like Aragorn at the gates of Mordor, as the orcs come piling out and surround what's left of the Fellowship. That's what Joe Cole was like. No, he says no. Actually, with all of that build-up, he can't just say no. Whatever. You shall not pass. That's different. That's Gandalf.
I was thinking more the Harry Enfield character. Oi, you! No!
Absolutely. So he gives it all of that. Has a little wiggle, has a little shake, moves his feet, moves literally with the ball at feet, literally carves a path through the dark armies of Mordor and works his way towards the goal. I've got in mind that it's Van der Sar in there, but I think if we just replace Van der Sar with I don't know, like the X-Men or the Avengers or something. The goal is full
Thanos.
Thanos is in goal. If wearing a glove, the marigold of Thanos on both hands. He's got two gloves this time, Thanos. Two gauntlets. And Joe Cole scores. And that was the type of thing that Joe Cole did, because at West Ham he was doing that all the time because he had the magic. And I think Mourinho coached it out of him. And I do remember, we go back to Ian Wright. I remember Ian Wright saying when Joe Cole came through, that Harry Redknapp used to do lots of little five-a-side games. And Ian Wright always used to insist when Joe Cole would come up from the youth team to come and join in, he had to be on Ian Wright's team because he's a winner, righty, right? He's got to win even a game must snap, right? He's got to win, yeah? So, right, I'm having Joe Cole. And that's how good he was. When Joe Cole was 15, 16, he was still the best player in training at West Ham, which it can't have been. There was no shrinking violets in there, mate. You had Stuart Pearce in there, you had Neil Ruddock, you had Ian Wright in there. There was big personalities in there as well. So to come in and, as a young lad, to stamp your authority on there is no mean feat. It has to be said. So what a magical player. And I remember Harry saying, I think he might be the first £100 million player. Look, okay, he wasn't. But but my God, he was good. I mean, he was really, really good. And I just don't feel he reached his potential, because he could have been and should have been the best player in the world. And I've said this story to you before, Gatesy. When he went over to France, there was a young player called Eden Hazard there, and Joe Cole was raving about Eden Hazard. Oh, he's got all the tricks, he's got all the stuff. And I was slightly disappointed to hear him speaking in such glowing terms and with such adulation about Eden Hazard, because I was thinking, actually, that's you, Joe. You are that, and that's what you should have been. You should not have been leaving. I think he went to Liverpool for a little bit, I think, and then, but he shouldn't have been leaving and going to France as this functional player, this winger. It just never was that. Played too much of his career on the wing, far too much of it, and quite frankly, he should have been an attacking midfielder.
Free role, floating behind the striker, sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Go and cause chaos, Joe. But yeah, I agree. I think that when he went to Chelsea, listen, Jose Mourinho, fantastic manager. He's won pretty much everything that's worth winning. Fine. And he knows probably more about football coaching than you and I ever will. But, he's never won the North Kent Cup. I'm just saying.
He hasn't. And I tell you what, he definitely, that's one thing he has. He gives it the large one, doesn't he? Holds up all the, how many trophies he's won. You should ask. That's what you want to ask him, mate. Get him on there. I'd like to know.
You've never coached a team to that trophy, mate. I have. Anyway,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do think that he did coach the flair out of Joe Cole and made him more of a workhorse. And he'd play on the left of midfield. And listen, he won Premier League titles. He won FA Cups. He won League Cups, whatever, multiple England caps. So, Jose Mourinho, if we was to sort of have that conversation with him and say, not that we will, that, to say that, look, you took one of the best prospects in world football and you basically turned him into a bit of a sort of a workhorse rather than sort of getting the very best out of him. He'd probably turn around and say, well, it worked because look at what he's got in the trophy cabinet. But yeah, I'm the same as you. I think that if you'd have built a team around him and played him essentially like a Matthew Letizia at Southampton, just listen, you haven't got a defined position. You're not going to be pigeonholed in a sort of like here or here or here. Just go where you're going to do the most damage. I think you're right. I think that's exactly what should have happened with Joe Cole. He was an amazing talent, talent. And he essentially replaced a player that I thought was absolutely a wonderful footballing player himself, and Eyal Berkovic. He was essentially Eyal Berkovic's replacement when he came through and pretty much forced Berkovic out of the door. So, wonderful player. And came back to us years later.
I got deployed on the left wing, which was lovely, by Sam Allardyce. Another. Anyway.
Now, there is someone that we do definitely have more football knowledge than Jose Mourinho, maybe not, but Sam Allardyce, I think probably we could muster up there.
Like when he got relegated, it was with West Brom, wasn't it? Was it take West Brom down?
Yeah.
I was really pleased about that. Not because I'm mean-spirited. All right? I'm not because I'm mean-spirited. But because he had spent his whole career, I always used to say, the lack of ambition in a man who would measure himself against not failing. Now, people have heard me say this many times. It's like a bus driver saying, yes, I didn't crash the bus today. Do you know what I mean? However, whatever, your lovely wife is a chef. How'd you get on today? Well, do you know what? I didn't burn the toast, so it's going to be a good day. Did you create
fire the kitchen?
Did you make tasty food? Look, I didn't set the kitchen on fire. And that's what he's like. Well, I never got relegated. Oh, well, brilliant, Sam. Brilliant. Good for you, mate. Good for you. The lowest possible way to measure yourself, you class as an achievement. Avoiding abject failure. And that's how he measured himself. That was his yardstick. That was his barometer. So at the end, when he got relegated, I thought, good. Actually, you deserve it. You do. You deserve that. Because actually, if you'd have striven. What's that? It's something that that's where you get the weeds out with a garden.
Secateurs.
So it's actually a strimmer.
Ah,
If you would have, striven is not a word, is it?
I don't know.
Something striven. I went strive.
I failed GCSE English,
if
so you're asking the wrong
If
person.
he'd have strived, striven, whatever it is,
Strode.
strode. Do you think it's strudled? If he'd have strudled to achieve bigger things, then that might not have happened anyway. Still might not have got relegated. Do you know what? He might have come away with a League Cup or something like that. If he'd have put, rather than doing what he'd done, actually said to those guys, Okocha, Djurkaev, and that Tabia Campo, do you know what, boys? Let's go for it. If he'd have had the attitude that Alan Pardew had, he might have actually won one of them. But so he got relegated. Good. Cup your ears to that, you big what's it?
I was going to say, was that you sort of like doing a little bit of that in the direction of Sam Allardyce?
Yeah, good
Quite
for him.
right too.
Good for him.
Right, so there we go. We've got on the side of the mountain, Gonzo. You have completed your work diligently. It looks magnificent.
Thank you.
And at this point, we'll get up for the viewers at home. There it is. We've got from left to right. We've got Leroy Rosenior. We've got Rio Ferdinand. We've got John Hartson, and we've got Joe Cole.
Handsome.
That is not
Handsome.
bad. Not bad at all. I mean, you say handsome. I mean, Rio, maybe not.
Oh, they're all handsome. Good looking.
Right. Okay. Well, Gonzo, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for your time. Before I do let you go,
go on then.
Honourable mentions.
You just said I'd like to thank you for your time, but you didn't.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Any honourable mentions.
Well, yourself, Gatesy. Yourself. I think you're very honourable. I'd like to mention you, if I may. You're a very lovely man.
Players.
Came and helped me out with my washing machine. So thank you.
Smelling nicer?
Oh, gorgeous! Honestly,
brilliant,
lovely. Just lovely. I don't even want to use it. It's so gleaming.
Brilliant.
You know what I mean?
But no, any players that you want to give honourable mentions to that didn't quite make the cut?
There were many that didn't. Many that didn't make the cut. And I just sort of mentioned, a lot of them at the start. It's just so easy to put Alan Devonshire in there and Trevor Brook in, and Billy Bonds, of course, was something else. He was. I'm not sure I've ever admired a player more than I've admired Billy Bonds. Let's get that right. And I think Payet, as I mentioned at the start, was something sensational to behold. That much is for sure. And you've got these little these cult heroes that pop up, and you could have put Ginger Pele on there for a little bit. Do you know what I mean? He's a bit special, isn't he? But no, I'm happy. I'm happy I got, because of the way they made me feel when I went there, when I went to the game. It's like Mark Ward as well. I think he was good on the wing, wasn't he? Mark Ward. That was really good. Watching him. George Paris. Oh, I love George Paris. Really did. And Alvin Martin himself. Alvin Martin. I mean, come on. What a servant he was. What a servant.
One of the players, a bit like your current favourite, Mr. Fornell, is a player that didn't have any connection to the club in his formative years, came in and got what the club meant, got what the fans were looking for, just got everything about the club.
Yeah, I mean, he really did. And he's got some wonderful, as you know, because you've heard him yourself, he's got some wonderful stories as Alvin as well. He's very good. He's very I think he's confident anyway, and he's a talker anyway. But I think the years he spent in the media has really helped him and helped his confidence. And he's a raconteur now. And if you hear him speak and hear his stories, he's very good. He's good value. Really entertaining, actually, Alvin. But what a great footballer. And look, we're very lucky. We tend to moan a lot as West Ham fans. I do it as much as anyone, sometimes on a daily basis, and upload my moans for everybody to hear. But I think comparatively, if you were to compare us to maybe Manchester United or Liverpool or whatever, then we have things to moan about. But I think in the bigger scheme of things, when you maybe look at some the other clubs when you look at whatever Blackpool and what they've had to go through with ownership and stuff like that. We're pretty lucky in the I don't know why I picked Blackpool, by the way, but we're pretty lucky with some of the heroes and some of the players we've been able to enjoy over the years. So I'm absolutely delighted.
Brilliant. Right. On that note, dear sir, we shall call it a night, and I'd like to thank you, as I say, for your time, your diligence, battering your hands to bits. And I have to apologise from the interruption from She Who Must Be Obeyed. I will deal with her later. No, she'll deal with me. She'll deal with me. Don't worry about that. I know who wears the trousers, and it ain't me.
I hope you're wearing some now.
Move on. I'm actually sitting here in my boxer shorts, if you must know.
Of course you are. That's the only way to record a video, mate.
There you go. That's put an image into everybody's head that didn't need to be there. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this next episode of Mount Matty Rushmore. And I'm going to finish off by saying my usual, come on, you Irons. The West Ham Massive are pleased to support Iron Supporting Food Banks. They are a group of West Ham fans and friends inspired by the work of other football food banks around the country. They collect food and cash donations for a Newham food bank in Beckton, who supplies 7 distribution centres in the borough 7 days a week and hand out several hundred 3-day emergency food packs every month to families in need. They are also working with other groups to improve conditions for vulnerable adults and children in the Newham community. You can help by making a donation to their Just Giving page. You will find the link to this in the description section of the video details in this stream. Thanks for your support. Come on, you Irons.